See, let me start with Amtrak. How many Amtrak workers do we have in the house today? Raise your hand. Yeah. See, I love Amtrak. It's an experience like no other. When you go there, it starts from the lounge that you go in, the platform, to the train car, to the station. And each moment is an encounter with the most friendly, best trained transportation professionals in the world. And this is, yeah, you ought to clap for yourself. And this is despite the fact that Amtrak's been a political punching bag for decades, constantly facing threats of defunding, underfunding, and privatization. You see, Amtrak has two things that the corporate right-wingers hate: government funding and unions. It's one thing for Amtrak to come under assault from the elected leaders entrusted with its oversight, but it's an entirely another thing for the company to be undermined from within. And that brings me to today's villain, Richard Anderson. Good old Richie boy. He's the guy that walked away with $72 million in stock when he left Delta after years of trying to stop workers who make it run from having a voice on the job. The guy who hasn't found a single workplace right that he supports or a corporate loophole that he opposes. Richard Anderson isn't the guy that you hire to save a company. See, he brought in to strip it for its parts, to cut every corner, to squeeze every dollar, and to screw every worker in the process. Bob, I don't know if you remember this, but Jones and Laughlin Steel was declaring bankruptcy. And both my grandfathers, my dad, both of his brothers, 10 of my cousins and myself all worked in a coal mine that ultimately was owned by Jones and Laughlin. And when they were liquidating the company, the CEO stood up in public. He was trying to eliminate pensions and eliminate retiree health care. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, "This offers us a chance to rid our company of the warts that have grown on it." See, he called my dad and every other worker there a wart. I didn't take that very well. By the way, we beat his ass too. We got those pensions and health care. But Richard Anderson follows in those very footsteps. He shouldn't be running a hot dog stand, let alone Amtrak. In less than 2 years on the job, Anderson's already wreaking havoc. Station agents have been laid off. Major call centers have been closed. Dining car service has been eliminated, as on some long-distance routes. And to Richard Anderson, this is just the cost of doing business. But to a rural station agent, the Riverside call center worker, the Capital Limited dining car employee, it's dignity, it's security, it's money in the bank and food on the table. And Amtrak workers are not the only ones suffering. Quite frankly, customers also bear the brunt of these mindless attacks. See, sometimes in a small community like the one that I live in, southwestern Pennsylvania, you have a personal relationship with the station agent. They tell you about their kids, tell you about their hopes, tell you about their dreams, and you share the same with them. You develop this relationship and a bond. You depend on each other. And quite frankly, that's part of what makes Amtrak so special, because it does deal with you in a personal way that people do. Sometimes when you need to make a change to your travel plans in a pinch, as I often do, it's good to talk to a human being. Sometimes Julie just isn't good enough. Sometimes when you take a long-distance train trip and you pay a good fare and you sacrifice a little bit of the speed of air travel, you want to head to the dining car for a freshly prepared meal. You want to have the leisure of enjoying it, enjoying the trip, looking at the scenery, instead of having to choose between a pack of peanuts or pretzels. See, those are the things that Richard Anderson simply doesn't understand or care about. He has as much loyalty to Amtrak as any corporate vulture does to the company that they inherit. No, he's not going to save this great American icon. But brothers and sisters, we're going to save it. The American workers are going to save it, this jewel, this gem, this treasure of America for everybody to enjoy. And the machinist-led fight for fairness and justice at Amtrak is actually a major part of the rising collective action in this country. See, it's really inspired me personally. And I want you to know that the 12.5 million members and the 55 unions of the AFL-CIO are going to stand with you today and tomorrow and for as long as it takes to get Amtrak fairly funded and the respect that it ultimately deserves as a treasure of America. And Richard Anderson may have the deep pockets, but we have the men and women who make Amtrak go, who make America go. So I have a message for Amtrak today. If Richard Anderson is unwilling to use his position to support and strengthen and grow this company, then fire his sorry ass and hire someone who will grow the company.